We're here today because new information has arisen in this case from witnesses who were so far unknown. There's a pattern that's developing here of Rex Heuermann being somebody who tracks down people and haunts them.
New details are released in the so-called Gilgo Beach murders case of Rex Heuermann, the man investigators say is responsible for a string of murders that plagued Long Island for years. We're now learning more about two potential victims in the case and Heuermann's relationship with his wife.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island.
After years without answers, Long Island native Rex Heuermann was arrested in July of this year. He now faces 3 murder charges, and investigators say more charges could be on the way.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families.
Heuermann was taken into custody this summer when investigators announced his connection to the notorious Gilgo Beach murders, a series of unsolved cases that date back to the 2010s.
I'm standing here with my law enforcement partners in the Gilgo Task Force to announce the indictment of defendant Rex Andrew Heuermann, 59 years of age.
Heuermann is now charged in the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, who were working as escorts at the time of their murders. He's also the prime suspect in the murder of another escort, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. The remains of these victims were recovered in 2010 as investigators searched for missing woman Shannon Gilbert. Her remains would later be discovered in 2011. Also an escort, Gilbert went missing when she traveled to Long Island to meet up with a client. In a frantic 911 call, Gilbert can be heard telling dispatch someone is after her.
What phone number are you calling from?
Somebody's after me. Please.
Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County?
I'm in Long Island.
Where on Long Island are you?
No.
Years after the Gilgo remains were recovered, Heuermann was arrested thanks to DNA evidence.
Once we were able to get some DNA evidence, which we were able to get off the pizza crust, and the box, pretty much solidified that we actually had the right person.
According to court documents, investigators recovered a pizza box Heuermann threw away in January 2023. The Suffolk County Crime Lab analyzed a piece of leftover crust, connecting it to Heuermann. Investigators also found hairs, likely belonging to both Heuermann and his wife, on the bones of multiple victims. Officials also confirm his wife was out of the tri-state area when multiple murders were committed. But according to new information released just this week, Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, knew for years that her husband used escorts. At a press conference on Wednesday, John Ray, the attorney for multiple Gilgo Beach victims, shed new light on the case after revealing new information from multiple witnesses. Ray says the first witness provided a sworn affidavit saying she visited Heuermann's Massapequa Park home in 1996. Ray didn't reveal the woman's identity, but did confirm she was a swinger who had sex with Heuermann. According to Ray, the witness traveled from New York City to Long Island with her boyfriend sometime in 1996. Along the way, they picked up a sex worker who was, quote, disheveled and hungry. Ray believes this sex worker was Karen Vergata.
She went with her boyfriend out to Long Island, but before they went, her boyfriend picked up a woman in New York, in the city, who had apparently just gotten out of jail, and she was disheveled and hungry, and she was a sex worker. We don't know the details yet of how he came to know her, but he knew her. And she came in the car with the two of them.
Once known only as Fire Island Jane Doe, Vergata's skull was recovered near Gilgo Beach in 2011. She'd gone missing years before, in 1996, the same year her legs and feet were recovered on Fire Island. For decades, Vergata's identity was unknown, but in August of this year, the Gilgo task force announced they'd used a DNA profile to identify the remains. According to the witness, Heuermann's wife was home when she arrived with Vergata back in 1996. She alleges Ellerup knew her husband had called for an escort. According to a sworn affidavit, as the witness was leaving, quote, "I saw the face of a woman I believed to be Karen up against a window at the house. She looked scared. I had a sense that she was calling for help."
But when they leave, as they're leaving, the witness points out that she could see in the window, looking out, the girl that had come with them. And she says to her driver, her partner, "What are we doing? Are we taking her?" And the partner says, "Don't worry, they're just playing a game. She stays there, no problem." With that, the girl runs out of the house naked and is running in front of the garage. And now the witness says, "Hey, shouldn't we be taking her? Something's wrong here." And the driver tells her, "Nah, they're just playing a game. Leave it." And they leave.
Another witness backs up this idea that Ellerup knew her husband was involved with escorts. According to Ray, the woman worked as a sex worker and serviced Heuermann multiple times. At one point, she was in Heuermann's home when his wife allegedly accused her of stealing, knowing full well she was an escort.
She said that she would service Rex Heuermann over 20 times and that he was a serial user of sex workers. He would sometimes have them come two at a time to his house, and his wife was home upstairs, and in one instance got very angry at one of the sex workers because the wife believed that the worker had stolen an iron for ironing clothes and had it in the car with the driver. So the driver had to get out, everybody had to search the car, there was no iron. But the wife knew about it and knew about, obviously, what was going on in order for that to happen.
Another witness, who also made a sworn statement, saw Heuermann with Shannon Gilbert before her disappearance. The woman, who worked as a taxi driver, said she was called to a motor lodge to pick up Gilbert.
She's called to go to that place, and that there's a girl awaiting her who's locked in a bathroom and will come out if she flashes her lights and beeps the horn. And she goes there and does that several times. It doesn't work. But then suddenly, a giant man who fits the description of Rex Heuermann comes out, and he's covering his face with his arms so he can't be seen, and he runs to a van.
According to court docs, Gilbert was, quote, crying and shaking, and said, quote, that we had to get away from there.
He had become very aggressive, very angry. She goes in the bathroom, locks the door, and calls to get a cab. And that's how she comes out. They speak for over an hour, so the driver knows her well and notices that she has a drooping eye, which is characteristic of Shannon, and also a characteristic of her family.
During a separate incident, the same witness says she saw Heuermann again. This time, she says he was wearing camouflage and asked to be driven into the woods.
She now knows him to be, she recognizes him from the media as Rex Heuermann. He says to her that he wants her to take him on a long trip into the woods. In other words, he changed the destination she had been told, which caused her immediately to become suspicious. And he was very upset, very angry, and he began to dispute with her when she said, "I'm not going on a long trip anywhere." And with that, he gets extremely angry and threatens to kill her, and tells her, "I already want to kill you. Just give me a reason." And he had a gun, a handgun.
According to the witness's sworn affidavit, quote, as we argued, he said to me that he wanted to kill me if I would just give him a reason to do so. He insisted he wanted to kill me. I heard him click a gun. Later, he allegedly fired off a gun into the woods. A separate witness reached out to attorney John Ray from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, saying she met Heuermann while working as an escort. The woman says she performed oral sex on Heuermann before he threatened to kill her. Ray says this behavior identifies Heuermann as a, quote, guy who likes to play sporting games, chasing and haunting his victims.
and he drives her into a park in Flushing, where he makes her keep her head down at all times, commit oral sex, and then he has a pistol in his hand and tells her, "Get out of the car or I'm going to kill you. And don't do anything except what I tell you to do or I'm going to kill you."
Ray says the new information came to light through witnesses who are willing to come forward. He says his door remains open for more information.
I have stood as a beacon as a civilian beacon to the people who are involved in this case to come and talk where they didn't want to approach the police out of fear, out of apprehension, out of a natural, in some cases, a natural distaste for the police department because of the work these people were in. So they would then come to me and speak to me, and I would interview them, and we would then cooperate, them and the police department.
Following Ray's revelation of 4 additional witnesses, Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond Tierney released a statement. It reads in part, quote, "Without providing any advance notice to the prosecutors pursuing this case in court or the Gilgo Beach Homicide Task Force members investigating these murders day in and day out, we watched today's press conference not knowing what was going to be reported. We will continue to investigate this case through the grand jury process and not through press conferences. No private attorneys are or have ever been members of the task force." New York officials say the Gilgo Beach murders investigation is still ongoing and ask anyone with more information to come forward. As for Rex Heuermann, he's due back in court on November 15th. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.